The Joe Rogan Experience.
I guess I'm talking about it now. I'm not supposed to. But we're looking at military government organizations that are typically in the shadows, right? We're not releasing any sources and methods. We're not disclosing any classified secrets. But we're talking about elements and units, operational activity, events that before now have pretty much been in the shadows, and some incredible people. That's one of the best parts about this thing. Has been going out there and meeting some of these guys that are doing some of this high-speed shit. And it's pretty amazing. And
when they do release things, like long after, like I was reading something, I forget what the case was about, but it was something about how the files won't be released under the Freedom of Information Act until 2080. Mm-hmm. Well, how do you?
Yeah, I know.
How do they make that like that was the thing with the Kennedy assassination, right?
And sometimes they roll it over, and it's not even then, right? So sometimes they extend that. Other times they don't, and so some information comes to light periodically. And so this does look at this show will be looking at some historic, but a lot of current things that are going on, and where the money goes, right? What are we spending our money on when it comes to this high speed operations that the special forces and others are involved in? So it'll be very good. I was lucky to be able to work with, again, some really great people on the production side, but just also going out there and meeting some of these cats. They're just the shit that they do is even after being around a while as I have. It just amazes me.
Well, it's got to be constantly accelerating too, right? They're constantly coming up with new and spectacular things that nobody knows about. Until they employ them.
Right, exactly. And sometimes the shit stays on the shelf, right? It was like the running joke at the agency at the CIA was, we have a fantastic S&T group, a science and technology group, and they're the ones responsible, like Q from Bond, right? Mm-hmm. They're the ones responsible for developing all the gear, responding to specific operational requirements. How are we going to do this particular thing? Well, let's develop a piece of kit that's going to allow us to do it. But the running joke is always that, they'll develop it and they'll show it to you before an operation, but then they'll put it back on the shelf because they don't want that shit getting out there, right? And people finding out that they've got it. So they'll give you like a 20-year-old piece of kit to use instead, and you'll be walking around with like a phone the size of a brick, knowing that they've got something high speed on the shelf.
Well, that's what everybody always thinks. Like when you talk to the average Joe on the street about technology in the government, they're always like, dude, the stuff they have that they probably don't tell us about. How much of that is real?
Yeah, it's pretty real.
Have you seen some stuff that made you go, holy shit?
Yes.
They can do that?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And
how much can you tell us?
Well, you know what? One thing that they're doing, and this is actually something I wanted to talk about today, because it's going to affect everybody. It's not just something that is going to affect people in the military or else in the intelligence community. But one of the things that they've been working on is, imagine you've got to rock up on a target. And before you do that, before you get the customers on site, and you're going to hopefully obtain some high value targets there at that location. Before you do that,
you got like euphemisms.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Before you're going to nuke people.
Yeah. Before you're going to go in there,
blow terrorists into another dimension.
Well, sometimes actually, I was going to say sometimes you want to actually capture them and get their intelligence. We've gone past that, right? Because the years where we were getting our ass kicked for holding on to people in detention facilities, you know what that did? That pretty much convinced everybody that was involved in this to just whack them, right? Because then you don't have to deal with the aftermath. You don't have to worry about, are you going to get in trouble for interrogating somebody, right? Exactly. So that actually increased the lethality of operations. You started painting targets and just blowing the shit out of there rather than trying to grab the target and get their intel. That's a problem because then the pipeline dries up for the intel. But anyway, so imagine you got this site. The first thing you got to do is determine if your target's there, right? And it's not like that, the Tom Clancy movies where, you're looking through walls and all this shit. That technology, night vision devices, and that ability in low light conditions to monitor and to identify specific individuals has always been a problem. They've made great strides on it to the point now where in no light conditions, right, with the right stacked database, with the right information in that database, meaning the right amount of information about individuals, right? You constantly populating this database with new faces or with new photographs of individuals that you're going after. With enough of that to sift through, they're getting to the point now with no light conditions that they can identify positively the targets in that room or the targets in that facility or in that building, whatever it might be. And that's pretty incredible.
I read that they can identify people by their heart rate.
Mm. Well, not just their heart rate, but I mean other biodata, right? I mean other.
But they can literally, with video, somehow or another, they can zoom in on you with some scanner and recognize that this is a particular individual because of their heart rate.
Yeah.
There was an article that was written about it, and I know that there's a company. Do you know what HECS is? HECS. It's a company
no.
that's been used pretty extensively by scuba diving community and now by the hunting community as well, because it blocks the electrical signal. HECS. It blocks the electrical signal that your body gives off.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think they're doing work with the military as well to develop suits that will somehow or another stop someone from being able to recognize your particular heart rate.
Right, and there's a lot of work on what they call the sort of the universal soldier.
Pentagon has a laser that I can identify people from a distance by their heartbeat.
Yeah,
it helps.
It helps if you have other data points, right? If you, but this is all part of it to some degree. What they refer to as the universal soldier, right? The fighter of tomorrow. And
Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
Yeah, well, there you go.
That shit.
That's right.
Remember that?
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't remember Jean? Although he's doing like chip commercials now.
Is he?
Sure. You haven't seen him in a Doritos or whatever.
Dude, 70.
It is true.
Still do the splits.
Yeah. Well,
props.
Yeah. I don't know when that becomes useful though. Really,
the splits?
I don't see the splits. I mean, I've never actually felt that was something I needed to accomplish in any given moment from an operational perspective.
If you're doing karate movies where you have to do the splits,
it's true.
Very important.
It's true. But so the universal soldier thing, where you're it's the exoskeleton, it's the soft suit, it's all the data that you can acquire for that warfighter. How do you create the perfect environment on that individual as he's moving through an environment to be a more efficient, effective, lethal fighter? And things like that, identifying target, whether it's with a laser, whether it's with low light or no light conditions, where as you're rocking up on the target, you can do that. All these things, the ability to carry more gear, right? Hump it another extra, 10 kilometers, whatever it might be. It's pretty incredible what they're doing, and it's a joint. It's not just the military. They're working with companies like HECS, or they're working with the commercial sector and academics too. But anyway, I don't know. I disappeared down a rabbit hole.
The idea of like this universal soldier thing. Have you been paying attention to this Elon Musk Neuralink thing that he's coming out with, where they're going to somehow or another insert fibers into your brain and then have a Bluetooth-enabled device that you wear that's going to allow you to somehow or another interface with data at a much higher bandwidth. I don't know what the fuck any of those words mean I just said.
But that was good, though. That was good. It sounded like you understood it.
That's my trick.
So
repeat words.
Yeah, there comes a point. If you're talking about, that's going into a different area. That's going into civilian applications,
but I think the military application would be great for that too. If everyone could synchronize data, you could give them navigation in their head. Like if there's some sort of augmented reality where you could literally see the targets in front of you. Like if you had a map, say like if the Pentagon really does have this laser beam that can identify specific individuals, and you have a map of a building that's in your head, and they can identify the very location, absolute perfect location of each individual person in that room, and you could see that as you're running into this building. You're seeing like a 3D grid in front of you, and you could shoot them right through a fucking wall. Right,
and there does become a problem then. There becomes a problem of information overload, and when you get into that situation, right, everything starts to close down a little bit, right, and so you've got to start pushing some of that away, and now what you end up doing is you get the offsite, command center relaying some of that information as needed. But that guy that's about to breach that door, he doesn't want a lot of data points anymore. Now, having said that, knowing where the hostiles are on the other side of that door, that is key information. That's not rocket science. But there's a lot that's going on. There's also the ability to monitor health of the individual, soldiers that are out there through the gear that they would then be wearing. It's an incredible effort that has been going on, and so to answer your point, a long rambling answer, I've seen some things that are pretty amazing.
You can't talk about it, though.
No. Some of this shit actually we'll get into with the new show that's coming up sometime in fall. I don't have a release date, and again, I'm prescribed from talking about it, so I won't do that because I pay attention.
Some of the things that you saw, you'll be able to talk about.
Yes.
So how does the government do that? They just decide, well, listen, it's not a bad thing if you tell people about this.
I think that's right. Yeah, I mean, well, I think there's an element of some of it's not what you would refer to as classified. It's just not readily available public information, and it's not out there in the domain because people aren't aware of it or searching for it. Some of it does. I think you're right. Some of it is. Look, the military wants to say at times. Look what we're able to do. We're doing this, and oftentimes it's because it's in a sort of a private-public cooperation, right? And so that encourages other companies with innovative technologies to step forward and get involved in some of this. And I guess that opens up all sorts of other, some people are out there saying, well, they shouldn't be working with the military. Well, fuck them.